Yo, what is going on, you guys? It's your boy Fredo right here, and this is my very first video, so hopefully everything goes well. I apologize about the plain background, but we're just going to see how it goes. Hope you guys enjoy the video. We're going to jump straight into it because it is a very long one. We have 50 states we have to go over, but before I start, just to let you know, to give you an example, LA Knight, that's the prime example. LA Knight, they always call into the ring. They're like from Los Angeles, California. No, that's not how it's going. It's based on where they were born. So LA Knight was born in Maryland. He's not from California. So it's based on where they were born. So keep that in mind when you see some wrestlers. Some might surprise you because they're normally called from another state, but they were born in this state that I put them for if they made the list. So let's get into it. So we are starting off in alphabetical order. So our first state is going to be Alabama. I do have an honorable mention in Mr. Paul Bearer. I know he's not a wrestler, but he was an amazing manager and a great mouthpiece for The Undertaker. But the wrestler I decided to go with was Bobby Eaton. He was a WCW tag team champion with Arn Anderson. He wrestled from the 80s into the, I think, early 2000s. He did also tag team with Chris Benoit when he started wrestling. I know we don't talk about him, but Bobby Eaton is going to be our Alabama representative. Next, we're going on to Alaska. There honestly wasn't very much choices, but the one choice that we did have was Kenny Chaos, another tag team champ. This time he was a tag team champ with Rick Steiner, dad of Braun Breaker. So that is going to be our Alaska person. On to Arizona. Arizona, I was surprised because I didn't know this guy was born in Arizona. But before we get to him, our honorable mention is going to be superstar Billy Graham. But the main guy from Arizona is no other than the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Like I said, Shawn Michaels was born in Arizona. I did not know that. I thought he was always from Texas because I think that's what they called him into the ring. But Arizona is the birthplace of Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, legendary career. Now the owner or CEO, whatever you want to call it, of NXT. Shawn Michaels is easily one of like the top 5 wrestlers of all time. Amazing entertainer. He was an easy pick. If he was in Texas, he does have some competition in Texas, so I don't know if he would have made it, but Arizona, he easily makes the list. Moving on to Arkansas here, I want to give you a heads up before anything. A lot of states don't have too many people, like Alaska didn't have too many, so just want to give you that heads up. But for Arkansas, I don't have an honorable mention. I went with Sid. He is a 2-time WCW and WWF champ. He did wrestle all throughout the 90s. He had a feud with, I think, Rick Steiner, who we just mentioned earlier. He also had not a feud, but he was a bodyguard for Shawn Michaels, another man we just mentioned. So Sid is going to be for Arkansas. On to California. California is interesting because you had people like Rey Mysterio, and then you had all the Samoans out there like Samoa Joe, the Usos, Rikishi, Umaga, Yokozuna. All these people you could have chose from. But talking about Samoans, it had to be The Rock. Like, The Rock is WWE. Like I said, California had so many choices, but I had to go with The Rock. Come on. The Rock was an amazing wrestler when he first started, now an amazing movie star, came back into wrestling. Let's say he came back in 2013, 2014 to face John Cena, came back this year, put on a great show at WrestleMania 40, and he's going to come back for SummerSlam or something to face Cody Rhodes. The Rock is the easy choice for California. Moving on to Colorado, we have Dr. Death Steve Williams. Steve Williams was a tag team champ back in the day with Teddy Gordy. I don't know too much about him, but like I said before, there wasn't too many people in Colorado, so Steve Williams was the choice here. On to Connecticut, we have Mercedes Martinez. I don't know if you guys remember. She is currently in AEW, but she was in NXT. She also did a whole bunch of stuff in the indies. I know she's a badass, but she is over in AEW doing her thing. So that is going to be our Connecticut pick. On to Delaware right here. We have a legendary tag team in Mark Briscoe. I know Jay Briscoe was a lot better. Rest in peace to Jay. He was a lot better than Mark, but he wasn't born in Delaware. Mark Briscoe, those two was a legendary tag team. Like I said, rest in peace to Jay, but Mark Briscoe is going to be our Delaware. On to Florida. I know you guys already know who I'm thinking of, but our honorable mentions real quick is going to be Lita and Bray Wyatt. Once again, rest in peace. Unfortunately, a lot of people have passed away and it sucks, but Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, and Lita are our honorable mentions. But I mentioned Samoans, but this Samoan was born in Florida, no other than our tribal chief, Roman Reigns. I don't have to go too much in depth with Roman Reigns. You guys already know about him, the streak he had with the title, all the WrestleMania. He leads the most main event WrestleManias in history. But talking about that, we're going to move on to Georgia. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to say the honorable mentions first because it's a perfect segue. It's no other than Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was born in Georgia. The honorable mentions real quick are Cody Rhodes and Arn Anderson. I know you might be thinking about someone else, but he wasn't born in Georgia. But Hulk Hogan, come on. This guy was like the icon back in the day. When he picked up Andre the Giant in WrestleMania 3, legendary. Everybody used to love him. I know a lot of people nowadays think he's very overrated, but Hulk Hogan was that guy back in the day. He was like their Captain America. So moving on to Hawaii, the choice we went with is Don Morocco. This guy was our first King of the Ring winner back in 1985, if I'm not mistaken. And then he was also a two-time IC champ and a Hall of Famer. I don't know too much about him, so we're going to move on, and we are moving on to Idaho. And honestly, this person was the only wrestler born in Idaho, like big name wrestler, and that person was Tori Wilson. I'm not saying Tori Wilson was bad, but she was the only choice for Idaho, so she automatically made the list. Moving on to Illinois, I know there was a lot of choices, but I didn't put any honorable mentions because Illinois is no other than CM Punk. Every time you go to Chicago, look at Survivor Series when he returned. A pop. Look at Money in the Bank 2011 when he walked out with the WWE champion. A pop. Look at SmackDown that just happened where he got beat up by Drew McIntyre. He had an amazing pop. Chicago, Illinois is CM Punk. So there was no doubt no one else was beating him here. Moving on to Indiana, we do have a few honorable mentions like Ultimate Warrior, an amazing wrestler, known for his face paint, his colors, all that. And then we have Terry Funk, also known for his ECW days. But the person I went with was no other than this man.
Eugene.
All right, I'm just joking. It's not Eugene. But the real person is going to be Mick Foley. Mick Foley is the best person. I was really close between him and Ultimate Warrior, but what Mick Foley did, 4 different gimmicks, and he had a Hall of Fame career with all 4, easily my pick for Indiana. So he took the edge over Ultimate Warrior. Moving on to Iowa, and we have no other than the visionary, the architect, the revolutionary, Seth freaking Rollins. What he's been doing in the WWE, the main event, not the main event, but the MVP of WrestleMania 40, going to go to Money in the Bank, hopefully win Money in the Bank. I don't know if he's going to win, but I will be dropping a prediction video, so stay tuned for that. But Seth Rollins is Mr. Iowa. Moving on to Kansas here, there wasn't really much choice. The next choice, honestly, was Baron Corbin, and Baron Corbin is not making it. So the person we went with was Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley, I think he's been in the WWE or like the wrestling biz for over 20 years. He had some stints in ECW, has some stints in TNA, had Headband Bobby. Bobby's been around for a while, and we all love him. He's tried to be a heel, but it's impossible to hate on Bobby Lashley. So Bobby Lashley was easily the Kansas pick. On to Kentucky, we have a man who just left the WWE and no other than Ricochet. Ricochet did basically die by Braun Breaker, and he was the only one to really make the list for Kentucky. But Ricochet, an amazing athlete, amazing wrestler, always can put on a show. So that's why he was for Kentucky. On to Louisiana. I feel like Louisiana honestly should have had a lot more wrestlers, but they really didn't. So the person I went with is Ricky Starks. I don't watch AEW too much, so I can't tell you too much about Ricky Starks. I know he is a legend. A lot of people want him over in WWE, but he did make the list for Louisiana, so that's why he's here. So we're moving to the state that's all the way northeast, and that is going to be Maine. And the representative for Maine is going to be Scotty 2 Hotty, the legendary, the creator of the Worm. I remember playing SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, or one of the old games, and using Scotty 2 Hotty just to do the Worm, because that finisher was just absolutely legendary. I know Otis does it nowadays, but it doesn't compare to Scotty 2 Hotty's Worm. Moving on to Maryland, the DMV area, we have no other than Razor Ramon, aka Scott Hall, absolute legend. Like what he did in WrestleMania time against Shawn Michaels, I think WrestleMania 10 it was, the ladder match, beautiful. All the IC titles he had, I think he only had 2, but you know what I mean. And then he's just an absolute legend. He came back for WrestleMania 31 for the NWO part to help Sting, even though Sting lost. But Scott Hall is going to be Maryland. On to Massachusetts. This was no debate. I don't think there was anyone else, but even if there was competition, it's Mr. John Cena. John Cena is easily, I feel like on the top Mount Rushmore of WWE, or not WWE wrestlers, but sports entertainers. Because he always put on a show, always knew how to cut a promo, and John Cena was loved by everyone until everybody started screaming, Cena sucks. So for a perfect transition right here, we were just talking about Cena, but the representative for Michigan had an amazing feud with John Cena over in ECW, and that's no other than Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam, an amazing career, amazing high flyer. He just smoked a lot, but he won Money in the Bank. I think he won the second Money in the Bank. He was like IC champ. I think he won a couple tag teams. He was WWE champ. Rob Van Dam was just extremely over at the time, and we do have a couple honorable mentions in Steiner Brothers and Kevin Nash, but I just saw Rob Van Dam in a higher level than those three right there. So Rob Van Dam is going to be the person for Michigan. Moving on to Minnesota, and I know what you guys are thinking. You guys are probably thinking it's Brock Lesnar, but honestly, Brock wasn't born here, so it's not him. Our honorable mention real quick, though, is Rick Rude. Rick Rude, look at the stash. He had a great career, won a couple championships, but Mr. Perfect just beat him by a little bit. Mr. Perfect was over back in the 80s, having feuds against people like Ultimate Warrior, and he also tag teamed with Scott Hall that we talked about a little bit earlier. So Mr. Perfect is our Minnesota guy. On to Mississippi. There wasn't many choices, but it is Kamala. I don't know if you guys remember Kamala. He did win the tag team champ with Sika. Or I don't know if he won a tag team champ or they were just a tag team. But he did win or was a tag team with Sika. Talking about Sika, rest in peace, father of Roman Reigns. But Kamala is going to be our Mississippi representative. Moving on to Missouri, I know you guys are probably thinking of one person. If you are, he wasn't born there. He might be later on this list, so stay tuned. But the person for Missouri is Harley Race. I did mention the first King of the Ring winner in Don Morocco, but now Harley Race was the second King of the Ring winner. He is an absolute legend, Hall of Famer. He had feuds with people like Ric Flair back in the NWA days, so it was an easy choice for Missouri. On to Montana. Not many people live in Montana, so the person who represents Montana is Smasher Sloan. I honestly don't know anything about him. I know he's a one-time tag team champ, but that's all I know from him. So if you know him, I apologize. I don't. On to Nebraska. I could have picked someone like the $1 Million Man in Ted DiBiase. I almost did, but honestly, I had to go with Sting. Sting had a 40-year career. He spent 4 different decades, did crazy shit in those 4 years, and wore face paint the whole time. An absolute legend, recently retired at the age of 67. So I had to go with Sting here. Easy choice. We're moving on to Nevada. And honestly, I thought more people would have been born in Las Vegas, but I was completely wrong. So for Nevada, I do have Buddy Rose. I don't know anything other than he is an Hall of Famer. So Buddy Rose was the Nevada representative. On to New Hampshire. We could have gone with someone like China, but we have the GOAT, the King of Kings, Triple H. I don't have to say too much about Triple H. You guys already know he's like a 12-time champion. He's the CFO of WWE right now, booking absolute bangers. So Triple H was an easy pick here. I didn't have to look anywhere else. But shout out to China. Rest in peace to her. Another DX member. But Triple H was our winner here. Moving on to New Jersey, we have a Hall of Famer in DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is he still wrestling? I feel like I've seen him recently. But he is an absolute legend. Had multiple WCW champions, multiple tag team champions, and I think he's still training to this day. So shout out to DDP. On to New Mexico. Honestly, there wasn't many choices, so Jakara Jackson made the list. I don't know if I'm pointing the right way, but Jakara Jackson, a very young, up-and-coming NXT wrestler, hasn't done much in NXT, but like I said, there was no one else. Moving on to New York real quick. I thought there was going to be a lot more people there, but honestly, there wasn't that many. But real quick, honorable mentions we're going to give is El Campeon and Damian Priest, Tommy Dreamer, and Lex Luger. But the person I had to go with was Beth Phoenix. The reason I gave it to Beth Phoenix is because back when she was wrestling, back when she was Divas champion and all that, she was dominating. We didn't really have too many buff women wrestler because, that guy we don't talk about anymore, the old owner, was a very nasty man and didn't really want buff women wrestler. He wanted models. But I had to give it to Beth Phoenix. She had a legendary career. I think, didn't she face in a men's Royal Rumble too? If I'm not mistaken? So easily a legend. All right, talking about dominant females, we're going to stick with dominant females in North Carolina because we're sticking with the biggest city in North Carolina, and that's going to be Charlotte because it's no other than Charlotte Flair. We do have honorable mentions in people like AJ Styles, who wasn't born in Georgia. He was born in North Carolina. And then also the Hardy Boys. All three amazing wrestlers. But honestly, what Charlotte has done throughout her career, the 16 champions, being Ric Flair's daughter is another major accolade. But all that she's done, and we know she's going to come back from her injury and win another champion. She has had one of the most legendary careers in the WWE. So I had to go with Charlotte for North Carolina. Moving on to North Dakota, we have Red Bastion. Honestly, I don't know anything about this man. Look at the picture. He's a one-time tag team champ. There wasn't many people in North Dakota, so we'll just skip that. Moving on to Ohio, we have some honorable mentions in Jon Moxley, aka Dean Ambrose, and The Miz. But the person I had to go with was, oh yeah, Macho Man. I had to do the impression. I had to go with Macho Man, legendary Mr. Slim Jim, whatever you want to call him. Macho Man was an icon back in the day. Also, he was an icon in the Spider-Man movie. I had to go with Macho Man Randy Savage. Moving on to Oklahoma, it was a very easy choice. I had no other than Goldberg, an absolute beast on the ring. Or in the ring, not on the ring, in the ring. Goldberg was a beast. He also had a movie career, as we know. He acted in Longest Yard. I think he was in another movie too. I'm not 100% sure. He also wants to come back to wrestling. What do you guys think about that? But Goldberg is Oklahoma. Moving on to Oregon. Oregon honestly didn't have much. So the answer was Art Barr. This guy I don't know anything about. All I know is he was a wrestler in the AAA and he won tag team championships in the AAA with Eddie Guerrero. Like I said, not many wrestlers in Oregon. He did win with Eddie Guerrero. We all know Eddie, and that's what I found as the best wrestler in Oregon. So yeah, not much to talk about. But Pennsylvania did have a legendary wrestler, and that legendary wrestler is Kurt Angle. Perk Angle, whatever you want to call him. Kurt was an absolute legend, the gold medal Olympian, diving off the stage, doing crazy promos, having banger matches with Shawn Michaels, Rey Mysterio. Kurt Angle was a mastermind in the ring. No one compared to him. That angle lock, the "you suck" chants, everything by Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was just an all-around perfect, amazing wrestler. We're approaching the end here, so here we go with Rhode Island. There wasn't much choices, but the one choice was Spike Dudley. If you remember Spike Dudley, the less brother of the Dudley brothers, he really didn't do much. I think he did win the tag team champ with one of the Dudley brothers, though. But other than that, he's the only Rhode Island recipient. Next, going to South Carolina. Honestly, the honorable mention, I could have put him as number one. The honorable mention I have is Shelton Benjamin. I feel like Shelton Benjamin is one of the most underrated superstars. They never gave him a proper run. I love Shelton Benjamin growing up. But South Carolina had to go with Big Show because unlike Shelton Benjamin, Big Show actually won championships. They actually gave him a chance just because he was 7 feet tall and he was a giant. So Big Show won it over Shelton Benjamin. But honestly, Shelton Benjamin should have had WWE World Heavyweight Champions. He should not have only been a U.S. champion. Talking about South, we're going to South Dakota. There wasn't much choices, but I did mention earlier, the one person who is from South Dakota is Brock freaking Lesnar, the beast incarnate. Also, Shayna Baszler is from South Dakota, but who cares about her when you have Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar is a beast, the alpha male. If you put him against anyone in the ring, they just going to look like a mouse. Roman Reigns looks small compared to Brock Lesnar. But you guys know about Brock Lesnar, the years he had throughout the whole WWE. He's been in the WWE since 03, 04, whatever. Or no, he's been since 02. Had an amazing rookie year winning, the Royal Rumble? Or was it King of the Ring? No, he won King of the Ring. That's what it was. He won King of the Ring to face for the world champion. He's been multiple time world champion, WWE champion, all of the above. And went to UFC, had a great career over there. The man's just the alpha male. Moving on to Tennessee real quick, and I want to apologize. For Tennessee, I had a tie. So there's two people for Tennessee. But real quick, honorable mentions are Jeff Jarrett and Bianca Belair. The two people I went with was no other than Ric Flair and Randy Orton. How can you pick between those two? Two people from Evolution, Randy, legendary career, Rick, legendary career, Rick still wrestling in his 70s, Randy looking amazing, looking even stronger than ever in his 40s, late 40s, and he's looking like he might dethrone Cody soon. Hopefully. But these two legends here combined for like over 30 championships, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they are legends in the industry. Ric Flair back in the 80s and the 90s, while Randy is all throughout the 2000s with his legend killer gimmick. So today he's still doing his thing. He has a match coming up this Saturday. Like, I couldn't pick between the two, so I also had a two-way tie here. Another difficult state that I didn't know who to go with was Texas. Honorable mentions are people like Eddie Guerrero, Booker T, Dusty Rhodes. There was so many people who came out of Texas. Obviously, it's one of the biggest states in the U.S., so it makes sense. But the people I went with, yes, people, I had another tie. These are the only two ties, and you got to bear with me, because it's Stone Cold and Undertaker. Like, these people, no matter who's Mount Rushmore, they should be in your top 4 wrestlers of all time. I don't care what you say. Stone Cold and Undertaker are top 4 wrestlers of all time. If you disagree, let me know down in the comments, but I don't think you should be disagreeing. Stone Cold and Undertaker. Undertaker with the legendary streak. Stone Cold being the guy who he is. Just a badass, creating the what chance. Even though they suck, he created the whole what chance. Drinking the beers, splashing it all over the milk truck. Or he didn't do the milk truck. He did the beer truck. Kurt Angle did the milk truck. But the beer truck, an absolutely amazing entertainer. And Undertaker just a supernatural entity that we saw and we loved. Like the he went 21 and 1, well 21 and 0 streak in WrestleMania, and then I think he finished off 23 and 2. But an absolute legend between the two. I'm sure you guys can't be upset with me with having this two-way tie. So I know it's been quite a longer video, so I'm gonna speed past the last couple states. I don't have a lot to say about them, but Utah is Zoe Stark. She just qualified for the Money in the Bank, so she'll be competing on Saturday for that. Vermont, we have John McMahon. I don't know who he is. 1900s guy. He's like one of the founding fathers of wrestling, supposedly. On to the next, we have Virginia, who is Mickie James, the wife of Nick Aldis, the SmackDown GM. On to Washington State is no other than Daniel Bryan, the Yes Movement, doing amazing things, both in the WWE, now AEW. He was just a generational talent. Everybody loves him. He's one of the best in-ring performers ever, so he had to. I'm also going to throw in Washington, D.C. because it's Batista. So we have all members of Evolution. I had to throw in Washington, D.C. just because it was Batista. I don't know if there's anyone else in D.C., but who's going to beat Batista? Moving on to West Virginia, I did go with Heath Slater. He is known for his NXT and Nexus Day. He did win the tag team champions multiple times, both on the main roster and NXT. So that's West Virginia. Wisconsin, I went with Roderick Strong. Had an amazing WWE career, but they didn't know what to do with him. So he went over to AEW, and he's still doing his thing over there. And last but not least, Wyoming, there really wasn't anyone except Garrett Bischoff, the son of Eric Bischoff. He didn't really do anything. There was honestly no one to choose from, so I just picked him. But that wraps up our 50 states. So that wraps up all 50 states. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, comment what state you are from. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe though. With that being said, Fredo out.